So let me share my screen and get to it. So share screen. We're going to share this screen here. You're going to see some tabs at the top. Sorry, but that's how I would set it up. I'm trying a new browser and it didn't. It does it weird. But okay, cool. How to use sales metrics to improve your sales team's performance. Brought to you by us, Voris. If you're not familiar with what we do, we're a team of go-to-market executives that we plug into our clients' companies. We help them build out their sales organizations, from hiring employees to um, building out processes for existing teams, things like that. Okay, cool. Who am I? My name is Kyle. As you probably already know, I've worked with over 80 software and service companies, helping them build a repeatable sales process. I take a very data-driven lens when it comes to building sales organizations. I focus a lot on the operations, the strategy, how the data or what the data tells us to make decisions on what our sales process should look like. I'm very data driven and nerdy about that side of building up the sales organizations. I started as an SDR. I was an account executive. I've trained thousands of salespeople. I've written 3 Amazon best-selling books, all on sales. One is on cold calling or doing cold outreach. That's called Cold to Committed. Then there's the sales development framework, which is more around building sales development teams. And then the most recent one is 16 Steps to Repeatable Sales, which is around building a repeatable sales process. So that's me. There's 3 main problems that I see time and time again. I've built over 80 sales teams now, and I've coached hundreds of founders as an advisor, as a coach. And there's 3 problems that I see with sales organizations time and time again. The first is that reps don't know what they have to do to be successful. And these are 3 poisons. That's what I call them, the 3 poisons. The first poison is reps don't know what they have to do to be successful. The second is the leadership team doesn't know how to use the data to help the team succeed. And then the third poison is there's a culture where poor performance is tolerated. And that's almost an outcome of the first 2. And I see this all of the time. A client will hire us, we'll come into the organization, they'll have 5 sales reps, they'll have 2 sales reps, whatever it is, or they're hiring their team for the first time. But when there's already an established team, we'll see this where no one's hitting quota and nobody seems to care. And then there's this culture where poor performance is tolerated, and it's so hard to turn things around. I'm curious, there's a good amount of people here. Can you type yes in the chat if you've experienced, whether it's yourself or somebody else, doesn't matter, just yes, if you know somebody or if it was you who's experienced a sales team where the culture was poor performance was tolerated. So we got 1 yes here so far. Thank you. Anybody else would be cool just to back me up here. This is a really difficult thing to turn around. And then here we go. Yeah, a bunch of people jump in. Okay, this is hard to turn around. It's really hard to turn around. And you want to prevent any of these poisons from happening. And the secret to that is data. And it took me a long time to learn that. My whole beginning part of my career, I was the rah sales leader. As long as I could speak to my team, keep them inspired and motivated, we would win. And then I was in a position where something weird was going on and that wasn't working anymore. Oh, my little goofy inspirational speeches isn't doing anything. Our team's still struggling. I dropped out of college to do stand-up comedy. I don't know math. I failed every math class I ever took. But at that moment, I had to learn how to do math, do data analysis to figure out what the team's actually struggling with so I could help and I could fix it. And I learned that very much the hard way. And I'm going to share with you, I'm going to distill down what I've learned so you can do it yourself now. But at the time I was in my career, I didn't have a lot of that insight. I messed up every analysis early on until I started getting help and figuring it out. Okay. There's a big opportunity here when you are more data-driven with your sales organization. And I call this the anti-fragile sales team. This is what you want to build. You want to build the anti-fragile sales team. What does that mean? There's a book by Nassim Taleb called Anti-Fragile. It's one of my favorite books. And what the anti-fragile sales team is, it's not durable, right? Because you have fragile that breaks if I drop it. Durable, just you drop it, nothing happens, doesn't it? It's durable, right? What you want is something that improves when it's dropped. An anti-fragile sales team, when it encounters challenges, it doesn't break like a expensive vase. It gets better. That's the anti-fragile sales team. And you achieve the anti-fragile sales team with being really disciplined on how you're using data and how you're leveraging that data to make changes to your sales process. So here's my promise to you. By the end of this class, you'll know exactly how to use sales data to improve your sales team's performance. Okay, and I have some spreadsheets I'll be giving out. You're going to love every second of it. 3 core principles before we dive into some of the spreadsheets is: 1, you need a really clear picture of your ideal state. Where do I want to be? What do I want it to look like? The second thing is you need to measure what matters. So measure the things that result when they're at the right place, result in that ideal state. And then finally, when you're not at the ideal state and what you're measuring isn't where it needs to be, you iterate with data. Okay. And we're going to go into this step by step here. So first is going to be create your ideal state using a growth model. So this is a growth model that we use. We build this out a ton. And I'm going to pull it up here. Give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. All right. So here we go. This is called the Sales Team Calculator. I will give you a copy. And by the way, actually, somebody here has a job. Whoever the most responsible is, you can raise your hand for this job. Please remind me to give you this. It's just me here. I don't have a fancy producer who's keeping up with all of my promises. So please, somebody in the chat, remind me at the end, and I will give you a copy to this document. Let's go through this here. This is the template one. This is what you'll be filling out. But I'm going to go through an example. Example 1, I will zoom this in. So this is a real example. A company came to me and was like, hi, help, is what they said. And they had just raised, if I remember right, it was like 20 million, give or take a couple million. This is a venture-backed company, which about half, maybe less than half, 40% of our clients are venture-backed. The vast majority are bootstrapped, but these numbers will look very different for you, which is why I bring this up. A bootstrapped company's growth model looks very different than a venture-backed company's growth model, and I'll explain more why in a minute. And actually, can you type in if you're bootstrapped or VC backed in the chat here? I'd be curious to see, because then I'll do a little bit more. Martin reminded me now of all times. Okay, yeah, I'm just curious to know if you're venture backed or if you're bootstrapped, because then I'll talk a little bit more to which one. Okay, bootstrapped. Okay, cool. Okay, I'll talk a little bit more to that, but these numbers are for venture backed, and I'll explain to you the nuance there in a minute. Okay, cool. So looking here, we got 2 million is their revenue goal. So they raise money and they're like, hey, we're gonna do 2 million in revenue. Hooray. Close rate 18%. ACV, annual contract value, 15,000. You call this your average deal size, basically. Show rate 80%. So of the meetings that get booked, 80% of them show up, 80% are qualified. So the ones that show up, 80% of them actually qualify. SDR pay 80,000, and that would be on target earnings, base plus commission. AE pay 150,000, on target earning, base plus commission. And then this is their plan. I said, okay, how do you plan on doing this? And they're like, oh yeah, great, we have a plan. We're gonna hire 1 SDR, 1 AE, and then a couple months later, we're gonna hire a second SDR and a second AE, and a couple months later, we're gonna hire a third SDR and a third AE. I'm like, okay, awesome. SDRs are going to be making 100 cold calls a day. This is very much an outbound sale. And then AEs, we're going to have making 100 or not 100, but way less than that. What is that, like 40 or something a day? So they'll do 800 a month while the SDRs do 2,000 a month. Cool. Simple enough. And then what about our activity to demo? Well, we're going to have to ramp that up because brand new SDRs, like they're going to need training. They're going to need to get ramped. So we're going to say their activity to demo rate. So if I make 100 cold calls and my activity to demo rate is 1, guess what? I'm booking 1 meeting for every 100 cold calls. Okay, that's what activity to demo rate means. If you're like mostly inbound, that number might be through the roof, by the way. But okay, so we're going to start at 0.3%. Then we're going to get to 0.5% the next month, which means every 200 calls we book 1 meeting, 0.6%, and then we'll ramp up to 1%. Depending on your average deal size, this 1% could be low or high, depends on the market. There's a lot of variables involved. Okay, so in the Q&A, if you have a question around what this should be for you, Q&A, give me some details about your company, and then I can give you a sense just from my experience. But okay, so ramping up to 1%. All right, so now we have a plan. This is how you're going to hit $2 million in new sales over the next year, right? And remember, we talked to the board. We raised money. We said we're going to do $2 million. It's going to be awesome. We're going to build this team. We're going to be the next rocket ship. Well, we don't hit $2 million. This is 1.2 million. I already admitted to you that I'm not good at math, but I do know that 1.2 million is not 2 million. And because I know that, I can also confidently say we're probably not hitting our target with their plan. So they see this and they go, oh, yeah, we probably didn't think this through right. No, you didn't. But that's okay. We're going to do it. And you all are going to do this because you're going to have this spreadsheet and you're going to fill it out with your numbers and you're going to figure out what good looks like for you. Okay. So again, you start with the goal, you fill this stuff out. If you don't know your goal, you can also fill this part out first. And then based on what it hits there, you can then put your goal in there. That's fine too. But okay. So that was the original plan. They raised money. So this is now we're getting into VC land. And I'm looking here, and it looked like a lot of y'all are bootstrapped. There's one VC funded guy, and that's it. Okay. And then Sydney's both VC funded and bootstrap. Cool. Forrest bootstrap. Okay, cool. So I'm going to do a little bit of talking about bootstrap and what the difference looks like here, but I rebuilt their plan. I actually want to be super clear. I'm going to line these up so you can just see. I want to be super clear here. All I have changed is this section here. Okay. I want you to look at all the other numbers. Notice how they don't change. All the other numbers in the yellow do not change. It's just this section here. So I'm not changing the activity to demo rate. I'm not changing activity numbers. I'm not changing the revenue target. I'm not changing their close rate. I'm not changing any of the other assumptions that they put in here. Some of this is based on historic data, some of it not. I'm not making any of those changes. All I'm doing is I'm changing this, the hiring plan. And if you're a VC-backed company, by the way, and you tell the investors, we're going to do 2 million in new sales next year, you need to be prepared to hire like you are. So what do? Instead of one, I hire 2 SDRs, 2 AEs. And then it's actually a month earlier, I hire two new SDRs. I don't hire new AEs. And then finally, we get to 5 SDRs and 3 AEs. That's my hiring plan that I put together. And the interesting thing here, drum roll please, is we hit the target basically exactly. And I was actually very proud of this because I just typed in the number on gut feel and it got the exact number. So I was like, hooray, I'm the greatest. But that fades quickly, by the way. And then I immediately go back to feeling like I don't know anything I'm talking about. But I digress. So 2 million. Now, you guys are all smart here, right, in this call. And you're probably thinking, yeah, dude, we're not idiots. You just hired way more people. Of course you hit 2 million. I'm not fooling you. You're very astute. Well, let me show you something interesting about this. We hit our revenue target. We hired a lot more people to do it, right? But remember, you raise money, you have big goals here, right? Big goals, you have to make take big action. But I want you to notice this. Right here, we are tracking cost of sales. And I'm going to use just kind of our regular cost of sales numbers. It's sort of a snapshot of what the cost of sales would be that month if these numbers panned out. Again, we're modeling here. Big difference between what works on paper and what works in reality, but if it doesn't work on paper, it's definitely not working in reality. So we needed to at least be reasonable and work here. You can see 33% is our cost of sales. That means 33% of the revenue generated by this sales team is going to pay the sales team based on the salaries that we put in. It doesn't include payroll tax and that kind of stuff, but you can just add that into the cost of the SDR and the AE. So right here, 33%. All right, a third of all the revenue this team generates goes directly to pay that team. That's either good or bad for you, depending on your business, by the way. For some people, this can be 100%. I've seen that a lot, actually. For other people, they need it to be 10%. But anyway, it just depends on your company. Let's go to the first one. What was the cost of sale here? Whoa, 40%. What happened? We hired less people in their plan. I hired way more people. But how am I paying? How's my cost of sale lower? I hired way more people, but my cost of sale has decreased. Type in the comments if you think you know why. Just type in what you think it is. And if you don't know, just say don't know, so I know that people are actually responding to me and I'm not speaking to the abyss and you all left me and I'm alone. Why would hiring more people result in a lower cost of sales? I'm going to go back here. By a lot, too. The VC funding, no, it has no impact. It's good. That's a good guess, Drew. No. This is just the team. Better utilization. Yeah, Martin's on the right track here. The reason why, I'll be very specific, but Martin's probably meaning what I'm about to say. lower OTE somewhat. Yeah, you guys are all on the right track there. SDR pay and AE pay stayed the same, but the ratio of SDRs to AE is different. The ratio is different. I pay less per meeting when an SDR does it than when an AE does it. And this is why the SDR and the AE function was split in the first place. It wasn't because we wanted to burn VC money. I'm sure that was a fun byproduct of it. But the real reason was efficiency. I spend less per meeting because I pay the people who do the meeting booking less. Very simple. In a perfect world, your A's don't do any cold calls at all because they're being completely fueled by the efforts that you have to get meetings on their calendar. That might be inbound, that might be outbound. In this case, it's outbound. That's what they were planning. So these are things to think about. Because when you sit down and you go, all right, what does good look like? Good looks like a $2 million revenue goal at an 18% close rate, 15K ACV, 80% show rate, 80% qualification rate, and this team growth plan. That's what good looks like. Now, your reality is going to exist. And one of these reps is going to say, I don't want to work here anymore. I quit. Or they're not going to pan out. You're going to fire her. Like life is going to happen. But if it doesn't work on paper, it's not working in real life. Right? So we need to make sure we have an understanding of what good looks like, because then we can quickly identify why aren't we hitting good. If our activity demo rate is not at 1%, well, of course, we're not going to hit the same target because we're not hitting what we said good was like. And that means we either need to adjust things or we need to focus on how to get it to 1%. But if 1% seems impossible, maybe it's not going to be 1% for you. I've worked with companies before that expect 0.5, 0.3. Actually, the lowest I think I've seen is 0.57. But that's totally acceptable. Their ACVs are way higher. So what I encourage you to do is sit down and go, hey, what revenue target do I need this sales team, even if it's one person, to hit to justify keeping that person around? And then what does good look like to make that number a reality? So now you have, this is what I'm working towards. So the first step here is you're going to do this yourself. Okay. And at the end, I'm going to give you this document. Right now, we're going to go back to our trusty PowerPoint. And now we're going to go to the next step. So we create the ideal state. We use the growth model in order to do that. And then you have to measure, and then that third step, iterate based on what the sales data is telling you, the metrics. So I'm going to go over some metrics that I look at, which is right here. Oh, look at Gemini trying to tell me what to do. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in here, and you can see this is the sales metrics analyzer. And what I'm going to walk you through here is all of the main metrics that I look at. We're going to stay a little outboundy here, but this is easily adapted to inbound. I just find that a lot of folks care more about outbound than inbound, which I don't think is great, by the way. I think if you have a strong marketing function, there's a huge opportunity even with using SDRs if you're able to do like good. But anyway, number of activities. Actually, you know what? Let me grab a different sheet. Sorry, I'm going to grab a different one where it's filled out. Sales metrics analyzer. Okay, sales metrics analyzer. Gosh, can I type any slower? Probably. Okay, cool. So how do I pop this bad boy out? Oh, I'll do this. Okay, cool. So let me show you one that with the data actually in there. I grabbed the one that you can fill out on accident. Okay. So here it is. So in this example, and spoiler alert, I will be asking you what you think. I'm going to go through this and I want you to type in, when you know it, where you would focus if this was your team. Okay. Let me make sure I have my chat open here. Okay, cool. Okay, so that's what I want you to do. While I'm going through this, I want you to tell me where you would focus if this was your team. So 5,500 activities. Those could be cold calls. Those could be calls to inbound leads, whatever it is. Then 10% of those result in an engagement. So if these are cold calls, these are people who answer the phone. If those are emails, those are people who replied to an email. Okay, 10% of them result in an engagement. We've engaged in that prospect in some way. Then out of those 550 engagements, we booked 17 appointments. 3.1% of the engagements actually resulted in an appointment. And then of the 17 appointments, 76.5 made it to deal stage 1. 46.2 made it to deal stage 2. 66.7 made it to deal stage 3. And 75% made it to close 1. So let's pretend that's your team. Where would you focus? And deal stage 1 might be qualification, could be discovery, could be demo. But if this was your team, where would you focus? Deal stage 1 to 3. You said 13 here, but I think you meant from deal stage 1 to you're talking about this metric here, right, Brady? 46.2%. Who else has one? It's a big drop off. I totally agree. If that's the one you were thinking of. Where would you focus? Stages 1 to 2. Yep, Jared. Yep, you guys all this is the same one. Yep, another area, top of the funnel here. So like more stuff up here. Where specifically? Conversion rates from top of the funnel. Okay, great. Top of the funnel. Okay, good. All right, perfect. See, we're flexing our brain muscle. We're all getting better. Okay, I'll tell you where I would focus first. Now, I can walk and chew gum at the same time, so I'm going to give you the 2 metrics that I'd be really focused on. But some of us can only chew gum or walk. It's a tough life to live, and unfortunately, I've seen it ruin many families. I would focus first on this 3.1% because we're higher up the funnel, right? The top of the funnel, we're dealing with bigger numbers. So that engagement number to appointments, like dead on, Vandy, right there. Drew, you got that one too. So anybody who said this would be my first priority. Because if I can get this to 4%, that is a really big impact, right? Especially as you start dealing with even larger numbers. Like this is 2 SDRs, basically, maybe 3. Depending on how many calls they're making, but I expect an SDR to make a minimum 100 calls a day. So this is 2 SDRs in over 1 month. Or I guess 3, it's more likely 3. Okay, perfect. So then what about the next one right here, deal stage 1 to deal stage 2. So whoever put that you're correct too. This is a big drop off. If only 46%, less than half of our deals drop off, I want to know why. Right? Like this is a really, really important number. We have to look, we have to say, okay, what's our close loss reason? What's happening to all of these deals? What's even worse is if this number is just like a high number, you don't really think about it too much, and just all those deals that are close loss just pile on deal stage 1. Where you open the pipeline, you're like, oh my gosh, there's like unlimited deals here. I see that all the time too. Okay, so that's how I'm thinking about it. I'm going through every month and I'm looking, okay, where are we with each one of these drop-offs? How are we progressing through our pipeline? And that helps you hone in on where we're running into trouble, right? The activity to meeting rate that we talked about in the growth model, that's basically this. It's 17 divided by 5,500. Look at that, 0.3. That's huge. If we can improve this engagement number, that has a big impact. All of a sudden, everything gets better. That's the goal, right? That's the goal. 10% activity to engagement. This is cold calls. I'm fine with the 10% dial to connect rate. Totally fine with that. So that's how I'm encouraging y'all to think through it. So we're going to go back to our PowerPoint here. How are we on time? We're doing okay. All righty. So remember, if you have questions, please type them in now because I want to make sure that we can smoothly jump into the end. But give me 1 second. I want to pull this up. Where's the... All right, whatever. That's fine. I can't find it right now. I was going to show you one extra little spoiler thing, but I can't find it. Okay, cool. So let's talk quickly about why this all works. And then I'm going to share one more thing, and then we're going to jump into Q&A. Okay, so the real big one, as you've heard me mention a couple of times, is This allows you to understand exactly where your bottlenecks are. That's such an important uh, part of this. It's such an important part because when you know the bottlenecks, you can actually fix them, right? You have a clear idea of where your team's performance at each stage. So when you start thinking stage by stage, you can quickly figure out like, okay, um, what is the like, what's actually holding us back here, right? Like, hey, you guys are good at this stuff. You're not good at this stuff. How can I make sure you're good? You get better at these things. Like super, super important. And then next, you get specific areas where you can try and to optimize. And having that kind of clarity is really helpful because you can make better decisions. And this is how a team just gets better and better and better and better is they constantly iterate on what they're looking at. Alrighty. So right now you're at your computer watching this class. You've heard how this works, and you know that following a process, being more data driven, is the key to increasing your sales. So before we jump into to Q&A, I want to share if you're trying to build a repeatable sales process. Some of you here are wondering, like, how can I implement this kind of stuff really quickly? And that's where I want to have a bit of a conversation here. If your company would like to be in a position to scale your sales org in the next 12 months, listen to the next 45 seconds here, because what I'm about to show you is going to stop you from wasting upwards of $300,000 in hiring a VP too soon and build a much stronger sales force using the resources that you already have. And that's the key. And we've used this quite a bit. So I'll give you like a quick example here. This is like I've used this first of all to grow more than 80 companies, adding over 133 million in top line revenue across all of them, and doing this, avoiding the costly mistakes of hiring a VP too soon, or focusing on training tools or other things that just don't move the needle when you have other issues that are preventing the growth. So, an example, I worked with Robert Ewan. He's the founder of Monograph, who we helped build their first sales team. They also raised 2 rounds of capital and 3x their revenue in 11 months. Or Matt Prados, he's the founder of Review Wave, who we helped grow, optimize, and scale their sales team and get back on track with 200% yearly growth goals. The best part of this is they did it without hiring unnecessary new team members. They had to manage rolling the dice on VP roulette or investing into pipe dream sales training. Instead, they brought on our team of experts who helped them meet and exceed their revenue goals without wasting time or money on high-cost executive hires or useless processes. Here's the thing. There are a lot of other companies that help build and optimize sales teams. Typically, they partner you with a single consultant who graduated from some fun program, some random program in the middle of nowhere, and is expected to wave this magic wand and shower you with ROI. And I've seen this time and time again. You might have too. Spoiler alert, it rarely works out for anybody involved. What we've found and proven is that building a high-performance sales team involves more than just setting targets and obsessing over scripts, as you've probably now realized. It's about having an integrated process where leaders use data to inform processes and decision. Then, and only then, should you consider hiring more management or team members. That's the prerequisite. Reliable processes with a collaborative go-to-market team are what has allowed our clients to see an average of 140% increase in revenue. So rather than pairing you with a junior consultant and hoping for the best, my team, we take a full team approach. And what this really means is that by working with us, you're backed by a go-to-market team with proven track record who are collaboratively using their expertise to grow your sales organization. We're so confident about this, we even guarantee it. We'll come in and build a completely tailored sales roadmap that details exactly what needs to happen, when it needs to happen, and we implement it into your business. That's the whole thing that we do here. This is a detailed step-by-step plan that is completely laid out for you by seasoned go-to-market executives with decades worth of experience under our belts. And if you're not 1,000% convinced that this document we put together for you is the holy grail of your growth goals, we'll tear up our agreement and part ways as friend. This is a really critical part to us because we want to make sure that you are very, very confident, but then also We are very, very confident because we only work with people that we are absolutely certain we can help. Like David Goss from Bureau of Small Projects, who had a 266% revenue increase in 10 months by focusing on how deals were being managed and using that data to optimize the sales process, the exact thing that we just talked about. Or Chris Greco from StoreWise, who we helped lock in the best quarter in company history while working together. So if you're hearing this thinking these guys are the real deal, they've grown other companies like mine, and they're guaranteeing a roadmap to help me do the same. If that's you, the next steps are super simple. Go to Voris.com/schedule a growth audit. I will also share the link in the chat here. It's a little bit of a different link that just goes directly to the page. So if this is something that you want to explore a bit further, click that link. This, and just so you have a sense of what's going to happen. So there's the link. I just put it into the chat. What we'll do is we'll sit down, we'll take a look at your business, the results you've had, the systems that you're using on the sales organization, the whole sales team, everything that you have. You'll walk away from our call with a good idea of what some of your gaps in your sales team and process are. I have very limited client space. We don't work with very many customers at a time because we're very hands-on. This is not a coaching thing. This isn't me telling you what to do and you go and do it. My full team, there's 4 of us. We work with every one of our clients. And because of this, I do all of these calls myself. So you're meeting with me one-on-one, and I can only do 5. That's it. I do 5 of these at a time. Once you book that call, and I give you a little bit of my sense of where you're at, and I'll let you know if I feel like you're a good fit or not. If we feel like there could be a fit here, we can explore more about how we can help you accelerate your sales and what that would look like. So click on the link that I just shared. You'll get a couple of quick questions to make sure we're all in the right place. And then on the next step, you'll be redirected to a calendar to schedule a time that works directly with me. Again, you're meeting with me. That's it for what I have for you. Let's move into Q&A. I'm going to go to my chat here, and hopefully you followed the instructions and you submitted your questions early. All righty. So let me scroll to the top. I shared that link there. And then let me see if anybody had questions while we were going through it. If you have a questions, please, if you have a question, submit it now if you didn't already. Oh my gosh. Nobody followed the instructions. Sad. I don't see any questions here. Okay, so I don't see any questions. Let me grab the spreadsheets here. I'll give them to you. Is that sheet cohort based, or how do you fill it out? Yeah, I would think of it as a cohort. Yeah, what you're doing is you're saying, okay, let's take a snapshot of 12 months. I'll post a copy of this sheet in the chat here. Let's take a snapshot of 12 months and look at what this team would produce. That's this sheet here. That's the first sheet I'm giving you. The next is the sales metrics thing that we walked through. Let me grab that. Okay, there's that there too. Okay, cool. Yes, treat it like a cohort. Think about, all right, this is the team that I want to create. It gives you some room to add team members. And that's what's nice, is because you think of it as different milestones. You go, okay, well, if we're performing here, then we're going to hire 2 more reps because we can justify, because we're hitting these metrics. So think of it like that, like a bit of milestones. And then for those of you who would like to meet with me and learn a little bit more about how we could possibly help you build out your sales organization, here's a link to that again too. I don't see any other questions, which is surprising. Usually there's a bunch, and there's a good amount of you on this call. So I'll give you another minute here before I jump off. Yeah, if you have questions later, you can always email me. Do not message me on LinkedIn, for God's sake. My inbox on LinkedIn is madness. I will never see it. But definitely shoot me an email if you have a question around that. The average length you work with a customer, it depends. Some of our clients have worked with us for years, and we help them run their sales organization. Then we've had some that will work with us for 6 months, or it just depends in terms of how long we'll work with a client for. So if you have questions around that, you can book a meeting. We can talk about it. Also, it really depends. Like when I say we don't work with very many, I very, very much mean that. We do not work with very many clients, and it's because my whole team, we like working very deeply with the people we work with, and we integrate with their team. We just can't take on very many customers, so it's really it's not for everybody, that's for sure. But I'll have a conversation with you, give you some direction if you're not a good fit. If you are, we can talk more about that. Any enterprise software you work? Yeah, we work with a lot of customers that sell enterprise a lot. In ERP space, yes, plenty. We've worked with a lot of folks who we actually have a client that's a reseller of ERP solutions, and we've worked with a bunch of like integrators who work, they partner with ERPs and they do integrations and stuff like that. We have a lot of experience there. Is this future proof with velocity coming with AI? Yes. So I'm glad you brought up the AI stuff. I actually think the lowest hanging fruit for AI in the sales organization is around analyzing data and getting insights from that data. I think that's probably what's most impactful today. A lot of companies are trying to replace the salesperson, replace the SDR. And I just think we're far from that. I think we're pretty far from that. In some contexts, we might be closer, but I think we're pretty far from that. Sorry for not interacting on a meeting, but this is gold. Oh, thanks, Tom. Hey, if you don't interact, but then you compliment at the end, then you win. Oh, stop. Don't leave. Nobody leave. There's one more super important thing. Oh my goodness. You guys all almost left. Whew, that would not have been good. Don't leave. I have a survey for you to fill out. Like, Jesus, Kyle. Here's a link to a survey. Please, if you're here, please fill out the survey. Even if you didn't like me, please just fill out the survey. Yeah, Jared knew what I was doing. Please fill out the survey. It tells me a lot. It's not a sale. You already heard my sales thing. I did the sales thing already. This is not a sales thing. This is genuine, like, hey, I liked this topic. Thank you. This was good info. I have stuff that I can do next. Here's also another topic that I would like. It's super fast to do, and it tells me so much about, am I on the right track? Am I not, et cetera. Okay. Oh yeah, that's my compliment here. Appreciate your time. Would love if you could share your spreadsheet after the call. Yeah, Tom, I put the link to the spreadsheet a little bit up above. Scroll up and you'll see it. Thank you. How would you recommend you can expand on current customers that seem to be stalling? So this depends on, like, are you talking about deals that seem to be stalling, or are you talking about current customers that just aren't increasing their spend with you? So Shayna, if you can answer that question for me, I will give you more context. For now, I'm just sort of going to riff on what I think you mean until you tell me exactly what you mean. And I'll put this link here too if you want to book a call with me anyway. Okay, current customers. Yeah, so there's a lot of different approaches here. So we do work with customer success teams. It's not super common, but it does come up a good amount. And there's different approaches here. Like, are you doing quarterly business reviews? What do those business reviews sound like? What are the levers of expansion for you? And what's the process for introducing the opportunities of expansion to your existing customers? Like, these are the types of things that I'm thinking of when it comes to trying to expand current customers. But you got to solve the stalling part. When you say stalling, like, are they not using the product as much as you would like them to be? Like, you need to have parts of it. I'm assuming you're a software company, so if you're not, my bad. But assuming you're a software company, it's like, hey, their usage is dropping. Why? And then we got to figure out why. Oh, not increasing spend. Or increasing what? Expand current customers that seem to be stalling. Help me understand what you're talking about, Shayna. Yeah, adoption is slowing down. Yeah. So we need to figure out the adoption problem. And you do this by, this is going to sound revolutionary. You're going to go, whoa, this guy's a genius, by just talking to the customer. Just go and talk to them. Like, get them on the phone, understand why they're not using the product. That obviously you have the data, so you can see that they're not using it. You need to understand why, who's not using it, how have they been enabled. These are the types of questions that you need the answer to be able to kind of figure out what to do next. Because you might find, I'll give you a real example in my experience. Everyone will like this story, by the way, because it's me in a hilarious situation. I worked at a company in the past that I will anonymize, and my team was at 200% of quota, and this company capped my whole team's commission. So when we hit 200% of quota, nobody made commission on any deals. By the way, if you want like a best practice, it's not that, because your salespeople just don't sell anything. So we would like blow our number out a month before the quarter ended, and then nobody wanted to work. But because of this, I got to do a lot of special projects. because I had extra time near the end of the quarter. They were like, "Oh, well, we don't know what to do." One of my special projects was doing some work with adoption. So our software needed to be used by trucking companies. Okay, so they're like, "Hey, we have a big issue. We did an onboarding with this large customer. This was an incredibly complicated, expensive software. This enterprise. You need what we would like you to do, Kyle." They actually called me on the weekend on a Sunday, and we're like, "Hey, can you fly to Atlanta on Tuesday?" And I was like, I looked at my wife. My wife was, what was she? She was supposed to give birth to our second child, like within a month. So we were like really right at the wire. And I'm like, oh, I got to go to Georgia. She's like, no, you're not. Yes, I am. So I went to Georgia. I was nervous though. I didn't want to miss the birth of my kid. So I go to Georgia. And I'm in Atlanta and I have to go visit trucking companies. If you've never visited a trucking company before, it is madness. This is unlike anything I've ever seen. Like they're using flip phones. Uh, the trucking company offices are not very clean. Like I'm from the Silicon Valley. Like, I live in the East Bay of San Francisco. I'm used to tech. And here I go and I get to see like what the rest of the world looks like. It's like really cool. It was interesting. And the whole mission was for me to get truckers to use our application. That's where they sent me on. So I go there and I'm like, hi, hey, I'm Kyle. I do the tech stuff. I need all your truckers to download this little app. And they go, what app? Oh, well, your big shipper that you work with has completely changed the entire process for sending loads to you, all of this, like, and this uses this app, blah, blah, blah. I explain the thing. They go, we haven't heard about any of this. Like, oh, that's not good. I need you to download this app, but you don't even know that something has changed. So I go to the next trucking company in Atlanta, same story. Then I drive to Savannah, Georgia, which was beautiful, by the way, very nice. And the shrimp was good. Went to Savannah, Georgia, same thing. Then I went to Charleston, South Carolina, one of the coolest cities I've ever been to. Talked to the trucking companies there. They said the exact same thing. Oh my gosh, well, now I'm noticing a pattern. None of these people were onboarded well or at all. I'm not sure what happened. So I kind of put all these pieces together. Then I immediately drive to the closest barbecue spot to have lunch. It was incredible. And then I hop on a Zoom call. The CEO walks into the Zoom call and is like, hey, Kyle, how many applications did you get downloaded? And I was like, dude, they don't even know that they're supposed to be doing something different. No one had any idea. I figured it out by talking to people. And, it was a big ordeal. We had to figure it out. And they essentially just didn't onboard people well. They sent an email instead of doing a call. Anyway, so the reason why I bring all of that up is we got to talk to the people. So the biggest excuse you get is time, and we are improving on onboarding, but historically it was poor. So there you go. Like my story is actually pretty relevant there. So just think through onboarding, but also, Shayna, one other thing to look at is what's the threshold to where people adopt very well? What's the minimum that they have to do? So another client that I worked with, they found out they had it was a project management solution for like a really specific industry. And they found that if they had built out 3 projects in the software, that they were locked in and they were going to use it for everything. So all the onboarding was built around the activation, right? That's what we would call it. Was built around getting them to get 3 projects in the project management system. Because if there's 3 projects there, we know that they're going to fully adopt. So that's great. Oh, I'm in the same position as you. My bosses are on my head to expand current clients. Yeah. So we need to understand what they're not. So this is great. Okay. I can give you direct feedback because I lived this. Okay, Shanna, this is what you do. Find out of the customers that adopt really well. What do they do always? So the example I just gave was they built out 3 projects in our system. So if you can find out your fastest onboarding, the most adoption customers, what is true about them? And sometimes it's going to be fit. Hey, the ones that adopt the quickest are the ones that experience this specific pain point. The ones that don't. And that could be a sales issue, by the way. There's a lot of tension between sales and success sometimes. But once you understand, like, okay, they use this thing or they have this department user or whatever it is, then with existing customers, you solve the adoption problem. And when you solve the adoption problem, you increase the value that the customer gets from the solution that they already have. And then you could talk about expanding it. But if they're not getting value out of the current solution, why are they going to get anything else? And then outside of that, like you're going to have a segment of your customer base that falls into that category. And then some of them are getting decent value from the solution, right? And that's more of a clean cut expansion. Quarterly business reviews. You go in, you make it very much about them. Hey, what value have you been experiencing? What other challenges are you having around this area? Anything that you wish the solution does that it doesn't, like things like that. And then you try to find, just like you would on a sale, what is the problem that they're currently experiencing? And is there a way that we can expand to help them solve that new problem? And I do that with quarterly business reviews usually. I don't know much about your business, so maybe that doesn't fit, but that's how I would normally do it unless there's a reason to do something else. So hopefully that was helpful. All right. Okay, good. I'm glad you like that. You're welcome. Yeah, it's sometimes, look, every job feels like this at times. I run a company here and I feel like I'm trudging through mud in moments, right? So like all of us run into this kind of thing. The key is like if you just take a step back and you just think through, in a perfect world, what does this look like? It's the same principle I just walked you through. What does this look like in a perfect world? And then what part of that in reality is not matching up to the perfect world? If you do that, you'll find yourself in a really good spot. All right. Well, hey, thank you, everybody. For those of you who are still here, I appreciate it. There's a lot you can be doing on a Thursday. You're spending your time with me. I'm forever grateful for that. If you ever need anything, never hesitate to reach out. And then in 2 weeks, we'll have another live class. It's a really fun one about hiring sales reps. So keep your eyes out for that. We'll talk soon. Bye.